As we have embarked upon our Daring to Hope journey, two things have become more and more apparent to us. Firstly, to live on this earth is to frequently experience trouble. And secondly, but even more importantly, God has given us the prayerful language of lament to use that we might not only begin to process and make sense of our pains, but ultimately experience and know the help and hope offered to us through Jesus. Having taken the first significant step of faith in our lament journey of turning to God in prayer, the next step in our formula for lament is centred around bringing our protests and complaints to Him. However, maybe you already sense an immediate tension here. Although we often find it okay to complain to others about things like the weather or Mondays or bad traffic and a host of other things in our conversations with family, friends and neighbours, the thought of complaining or protesting to God about our circumstances can feel like entirely the wrong response. But is it? Is protesting or complaining to God about the dark clouds of our lives wrong? Maybe the image of protesting or complaining before God conjures up images in our minds of pushing the boundaries too far, of becoming so angry that all we do is vent at God in self-centred rage because the circumstances of our lives are not how we planned or imagined them. That kind of anger and rage is something which would be wrong. Maybe to be safe and avoid being too open, too honest and too real, we'd rather avoid protesting or complaining to God altogether by equating godliness with stoicism and the false claim that everything's fine, even though deep down we know it isn't. But again, as we've seen in our previous sessions, this kind of silence before God isn't right either. So what does the Bible have to teach us about this? In a world where the practice of godly complaint in prayer and lament is foreign to many Christians, is there a space in our lives today for a kind of complaining and protest that is biblical? The answer, as we've heard before, is a resounding yes. Throughout the lament psalms and indeed the whole of the Bible, the different authors frequently found ways to creatively protest and complain to God about their sorrow, anger, heartache, fear, longing, pain, confusion, desolation, disappointment, depression and more. Listen to how David begins Psalm 10 with two strong complaints. Why, Lord, do you stand far off? Why do you hide yourself in times of trouble? That psalms like Psalm 10 and many others, such as Psalms 22, 69, 74, 85, 88, 102, 137 and 140 have made it into the Bible suggests that pain is to be an expected product of what it is to be human. But their inclusion also implies something else, something incredibly important that we cannot ignore or even overlook. And that is that God wants us and even expects us to frequently express the avalanche of our psychological, emotional and spiritual pains to Him. Whilst we will explore how to do this in a godly way in the second half of this session, it is vital that we grasp at this moment that we each have a God-given permission to move beyond silence and pour out our protests and complaints to God. You can cry out to Him. You can express your struggles. You can ask your difficult questions. Having turned to God and forged that relationship with Him, you have permission to protest and complain to Him about the dark clouds of your life. In fact, so important are these voices of protest and complaint that without them, there can be no lament.